Yo, how is it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Crucible Brothers, a little after dark edition, as I'm recording this in the wee hours of the morning before Trials of Osiris is going live for the first time in the Lightfall era of Destiny. And really, I just want to sit here and chop it up for a little bit about a tweet from Bungie about a clarification on why SBMM is not coming to Trials and why that is inevitably a great thing for the playlist. It's brought back up the inevitable controversial discussion about skill-based matchmaking in general in Destiny, and I wanted to give my 2 cents about why, specifically for Trials, there is no place for skill-based matchmaking, and thankfully Bungie are going the right direction this time. So, before we get too far into it, please hear me out here. If you are someone who is a firm defender of skill-based matchmaking, listen to my arguments thoroughly, and then leave me your responses in the comments down below. And while you're down there, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well for more content coming your way. See what I did there? Kind of looped you in, didn't I? So make sure you do it. Anyway, let's get right back into the meat of it. Okay, so first thing, let's just establish some baseline here. I do not like skill-based matchmaking in Destiny 2 as it currently exists. I've talked about this before, and that's not any uncommon sentiment within the community. This video will not be about the validity of SBMM as a whole, because I will admit that if it's implemented correctly, I think the goals of SBMM are noble and worth pursuing. You want the best playing environment for all players. I just think that our current implementation doesn't achieve that. That is a separate topic for another day. We're just talking about the concept of skill-based matchmaking entering the Trials playlist specifically, because for how Trials is set up and what it achieves in Destiny, skill-based matchmaking would fundamentally break what Trials is. So firstly, let's define what Trials is. Trials of Osiris is more than just a playlist. It's more than just a weekly event. It is the only open-ended, free-to-join, match-made tournament format playlist that I have ever seen in a video game. If you think about it, Trials is a bracket tournament where your goal is to climb the bracket, win 7 games in a row, go flawless, get the loot. It is one of a kind in my opinion. No other game has ever reproduced what Trials produces in a weekend. To make a real life comparison, Trials of Osiris is like your local gym doing a pickup open basketball tournament every weekend where everyone is allowed to join regardless of skill level. They get to play and you have a chance to climb and win a medal, right? There's nothing like that anywhere else. And unfortunately, skill-based matchmaking does not work for a tournament format. So let me define what I mean by that. So traditionally, when you think of a bracket tournament, what you would have is a set number of teams. Those teams would be placed into matches. The winners would progress to the next round in the bracket. The losers would obviously get the hell out. You do that until you get down to your championship match between the final 2 competitors. That person, whoever wins, right? That's a tournament. Trials of Osiris accomplishes that through the card-based matchmaking systems. When you play Trials of Osiris and you're on 0 wins, you're most likely going to play players who are also 0 wins, sometimes 1, 2, or 3 wins, because matchmaking for cards is stricter as you get deeper into the flawless attempt, right? So as soon as you're in like your game 4, game 5, game 6, you're playing players who are just as deep into Trials cards as you, regardless of skill. If you're playing your flawless game, you're going to be playing anyone else who might also be on their flawless game, and that could be anyone of any skill. Skill is not determined in that matchmaking. It is solely focused on connection and then the card. If you were to introduce skill-based matchmaking, that would throw that off, because skill-based matchmaking is preferencing to balance the game the best way possible. It wants in theory, the most even teams it can get. It's not going to factor in, well, in most cases, connection, and in this case, where you are in the card. So how do you balance that out? Well, you have to favor something. Are you going to favor card-based matchmaking? In which case, why is skill-based matchmaking even in the first place? Or are you going to preference your skill-based matchmaking, which throws off the point of a tournament bracket in the first place? You see, one of the fundamental appeals of Trials is the randomness every time you run a card. And if you've played Trials a lot, you know what I mean. Sometimes you'll breeze through a Trials card. You'll play all 7 games. They will be very simple. You'll just win every time. Maybe because you're just better than the teams you're playing. Maybe because the matchmaking fed you a bunch of teams who weren't as good as you were. It doesn't really matter. You've just gotten essentially a, quote, free flawless. Other times, you're going to meat grinder your way through a card. It may be sweaty matches all the way up. You may also just get gatekept on the first 3 wins from teams that are way better than you. Anything can happen when you play Trials, and that fundamental randomness is a lot of the appeal. Trials is one of the most exhilarating experiences Destiny produces because it's essentially controlled chaos. You don't know what you're going to get when you play a Trials match, you just know roughly that players are in a similar spot to you on their way up the tournament bracket. That's the only guarantee. So adding skill-based matchmaking, in my opinion, removes a lot of that charm. And then on top of that, adding strict skill-based matchmaking like what we see currently in quick play would make it significantly harder for players at every level to go flawless. Now obviously, skill-based matchmaking defenders will often state, well, what do we do as bad players who get stomped out by pros doing carries? Well, unfortunately, the answer is you just have to get better. Trials is the one mode that you are pushed to play better outright than the teams you are facing to get your rewards. PvP has no other experience like that. It's the only PvP experience where you are expected to grind, get better, overcome adversity, and then get an equal reward. The problem is, skill-based matchmaking inherently tries to force a 50% win rate. So, no matter what, at all skill levels, it now becomes much harder to win 7 matches in a row, even if you are a team that's good enough to go flawless. So if you're a player who is maybe not as good, guess what? Instead of having a random chance to play those Miracle Trials cards where you play worse opponents than you now have to grind against players who are as good as you are the entire way up. Imagine having to win a coin flip 7 times in a row. What are your odds there? Hey, guess what? They're not that good. So not only have you made the Trials experience worse because you're having to guarantee grind out all of your matches, you're now making it essentially very random when and when you will not be able to go flawless. Another secondary side effect of this is that skill-based matchmaking would essentially kill off the ability for people to do carries. Now, I have my own qualms about carries. I especially do not like paid carries. But there is no doubt that the free carries economy that happens on Twitch every weekend is a big part of why Trials is as popular as it is. The best streamers get on and give players maybe their one chance to go flawless that weekend. And if you want the bad players to get hooked on Trials, you'll get them flawless. Because when they get to the Lighthouse for the first time, they will get loot they didn't think they could get ever. And maybe they're inspired to go and grind and get better at the game. If nothing else, you would give that person an experience they otherwise would not be able to get on their own. Skill-based matchmaking would take that whole cottage industry away. And think about what that would do to the viewership of Destiny PvP in general. Some of these streamers who do free carries every weekend are the most popular streamers on the platform. That is huge for the ongoing attention that Destiny 2 PvP needs. Skill-based matchmaking at every level would ruin the Trials experience. It has no place in the playlist. It would kill off one of the last remaining really cool aspects about Destiny PvP, and Trials would be dead. There would be no hope for the playlist at that point. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that. Bungie are right on this one to not implement skill-based matchmaking into Trials, and if you were someone who thinks it should be there, hopefully you listen to my arguments today and see that that would be a bad idea. If you still disagree with me, I'm willing to hear you out in the comments down below. This is just one person's opinion, and keep in mind, I'm not a top 1% player. Here are my trial stats. I have to grind for my flawlessness. I'm lucky to go flawless once a weekend when I want to, if it's a gun I want to go get. I have to work for it. So I am by no means someone who just gets free flawlesses or does carries or just gets stacked with a bunch of 2.5 KD demons and just goes through 5 times in a weekend. I don't do that. And I still think skill-based matchmaking is a terrible idea, just like Bungie does. So make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more, leave a comment down below, and good luck out there on Trials this weekend. I hope you guys get what you want, and hopefully the map is good, and Bungie just gives us the Immortal. Give it to us, Bungie. We want that Adept SMG. Anyways, see ya.